Hey there, we're here with Pete Douthit from 11Yanks. How you going, Pete?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me back on.
Oh, anytime. Let's kick off straight away with Gabriel Slonina. He's joined from Chicago Fire to Chelsea Football Club and immediately been loaned back to America. Give us your thoughts on him as a player and tell us a bit about him. He might be unknown to a lot of Chelsea fans considering his young age, but there's high raps on him. So tell us about him.
Yeah, so Gabriel Slonina is an 18-year-old American. He recently got the number one job at Chicago, which towards the end of last season, and then this season it's been his. He's definitely got, a ton of talent, this kid, to be starting. He was actually 17 when he got the starting job, which for a goalkeeper, is very, very young. There have been comparisons to Donnarumma and to Aaron Ramsdale, who both also started when they were 18. I think those comparisons are premature. He's very raw. Look, he's got a lot of work to do in so many areas of his game, which is what, you would expect from an 18-year-old. But every now and then he just pulls off an absolutely amazing save that you go, wow, the potential is definitely there. It's more the simple things that he struggles with. Whether that's passing out of the back. Sorry, that's my dog getting excited. Right. Whether that's passing out of the back or coming for crosses, his positioning, his reading of the game. Those are all aspects of his play that he's going to have to improve on. It's exciting that Chelsea wants him in some ways. In some ways, for an 18-year-old, it's hard to turn that down. And my only concern with the Chelsea move is what's going to happen. Is he going to, he's coming back on loan to the end of the season. After that, what's the plan, I guess, is kind of my, question. Because if you're a starter every week in MLS, which, it's not a top 10 league in the world, but it's a decent league, versus playing in the under 23 team at Chelsea, which honestly I think is where he is, or being a third choice keeper for them who will never play. Is that great for his development? I don't know. And I don't know what the plan for him is. Maybe he goes out on loan at some point, but I don't know any top 6, 7 leagues in Europe that would take him as a keeper right now, because I just don't think he's ready, So I don't know what the plan is, and I hope they have a plan, because Chelsea's notorious for having massive loan armies that just never, really make it, and they just spend season after season on loan. We've seen that with Matt Miazga, right? It's been 7 years at Chelsea now. It's been one club to another, ranging from Championship, Spain, France, and he hasn't really improved as a player. So I like the move. I think it's great to see that Chelsea want to sign this young kid. Is there a plan for his development beyond, he's a Chelsea player? That's, I guess, the big question with Slonina.
How many years do you think till he gets to that level where he come back to Europe? How long?
It's hard to say with young players, right? It's up to him, really, how he improves. Can he become more consistent with doing the small things well, I could see it being he finishes, a season here in Chicago, and then he goes, to Chelsea for a year, maybe gets loaned out for a year to, I want to say, League One team at best. I don't think he's really ready even for the championship, but it's just so hard to say with young players and goalkeepers especially. I mean, the crazy thing is in 2030, this guy's only going to be 25 years old. So, it kind of blows your mind when you think about just how young he is. But he's not Donnarumma and he's not Ramsdale, because I saw both of those guys when they were 18 and, they were significantly better than Slonina is now.
That's a good insight right there. Leeds United have also been on their American recruitment circuit this summer with Brendan Aronson and Tyler Adams. I had the privilege of watching both of them play for Leeds in Queensland recently. What are your expectations for them as players this season at Leeds, and how much impact do you think they can have? And also, what are your expectations for Leeds under Jesse Marsch? He's going to be under pressure, you would say, after just narrowly missing out on relegation last year. But having seen him at press conferences, he seems confident and encouraged, I guess, by what he's seen over pre-season.
Yeah, so I think the Brendan Aronson and Tyler Adams is very much related to what Leeds was trying to do this offseason. And, they wanted Brendan Aronson long before, Jesse Marsch went there. They wanted him way back in January when Bielsa was still the manager. Brendan Aronson is in the top 1% in the world for ground covered in all of Europe. in terms of ground cover during a game. Yeah, and so he very much fits the Jesse Marsch style of press until you die, Tyler Adams is the same. He's not the most technical player, but he will work very, very hard for the team. He's a destroyer in midfield. A lot of people thought, is he really the replacement for Calvin Phillips? But again, if you look at what Leeds have done, they struggled last season with injuries and, with too much pressure falling on just a few players, whether that was Rafinha or Calvin Phillips or Rodrigo to a degree. But now what they're trying to do is build more quality across the roster. So maybe they didn't replace a Calvin Phillips with a Calvin Phillips, but they brought Tyler Adams and Mark Roca together. It looks like Jesse Marsch is going to play a double pivot in midfield. Adams is going to be the destroyer, and then Roca is going to be the distributor. And that, I think, sort of distribution of responsibility will make them more consistent across the board. And again, there are still questions about Leeds and in the transfer market, because they did lose Rafinha, they did lose Phillips. They brought in a lot of decent players that are not at that level, but I still think they've struggled to replace the two positions they need most, which is a forward, a goal scorer, and a center back. They were a leaky team. I think they were the third worst team in the Premier League in terms of goals conceded last year. And they haven't brought in a center back to, really resolve those issues. So you could say, okay, well, maybe a lot of their defense is going to be more to do with his pressing schemes, but I still think they need to strengthen those two spots if they want to, shoot for mid-table or above. But I think that Jesse Marsch, the question, and I think I talked about this last time, is he is very much a tactical ideologue. He wants, the Red Bull system, which is press, and then when you win the ball, you be direct as you can and, force the opponent to defend on the back foot. And that can work in moments, but sometimes in the past, we've seen him be very inflexible with that system and be like, this is the way we're going to do it. And I will keep doing it even when it's clearly not working. We saw him be a little more flexible last year with Leeds. He came in, went to this 4-2-3-1. He was a little more flexible tactically. They weren't an all-out pressing team. And so I'm curious with Jesse, how is he going to manage that this season? How is he going to manage his ideology about the game? But balance that out with, you need to get points, right? You need to find ways to maybe shut down a game when you're 1-0 up, right? We saw this in the Champions League. He was 2-2 with Liverpool or Bayern Munich when he was at Salzburg, and he should have shut up shop and taken the point, but instead he kept going after them and ended up losing like 7-2. So it's just, I'm curious to see how Jesse does in terms of, being more tactically flexible. And can he handle the pressure, right? The week in, week out pressure. He showed last season that he can, right? He got them to safety. My projection for this year is Leeds finish somewhere between 12th and 16th. So not quite mid-table, but not fighting relegation necessarily.
I was just about to ask you that. What's your prediction?
Okay.
So, I definitely think you're right there, especially with the forward situation. They need another goal scorer. Bamford only played 9 games last year in the Premier League. So that's an issue. Another American international, Christian Pulisic. He's obviously not guaranteed game time at Chelsea. That's been proven. What impact will that have on him as a player this year heading into the World Cup? And do you think perhaps he has to start reconsidering his future at Chelsea if he isn't given the guarantees to be playing as often as he would like?
I don't think anybody can get guarantees though, right? I mean, unless you're Messi or Neymar, nobody's really guaranteed to be playing. I mean, look at Jack Grealish and Raheem Sterling sitting on the bench at Manchester City. Like, I just think that's part of playing at the highest level. And sometimes as Americans, we tend to freak out, right? Oh my God, they hate our boy. It's like, well, this is the level our boy is playing at. And so you're not going to be guaranteed to start every game. That's just the truth. And now they've brought in Raheem Sterling as well. So will that limit his minutes? Possibly. But there's also rumors about Timo Werner leaving. If he goes back to Leipzig, or even Ziyech leaving. So it's just, I don't know what's happening with Chelsea. In the off season, they've looked really sluggish. Tuchel has made remarks about, a lot of our players want to leave. And so they're not really putting their heart into preseason. Like, are we going to look at a Chelsea that implodes at the start of the season and then Tuchel gets sacked? I don't know. So like the whole situation at Chelsea is kind of, you have to look at it like that. Well, I'm sure Pulisic will get games, right? He's a good quality player. Tuchel has shown in the past that he trusts him. Where he'll play is a big question, because now Raheem Sterling is likely to start on that left-hand side. Does he play him as a false 9? I mean, they don't really have a forward. Kai Havertz, I guess, will play as a forward. Maybe sometimes Timo Werner if he's there. But if not, is it going to be, if Werner leaves and Lukaku's gone to Inter Milan, is it going to be Pulisic playing as a false nine. We saw a little bit of that last season. He's going to play right wing back. It's just, there's so many unknowns with Pulisic, but I mean, this is what it means to play at the top level. And yeah, I think eventually, if it's very clear that he's not going to get the game time that he wants at Chelsea, he's got to leave. But I thought there was a possibility he would leave this offseason, based on some comments that his dad made last season that, but I just, there hasn't really been that much news coming out of Chelsea. It's kind of been a bizarre offseason. So it's very much wait and see. But for Pulisic, again, this is what it means to play at the top level. He's going to have to get his head down, work his ass off in training, and then hopefully get opportunities on the weekend. And when he gets them, take them. Tuchel has shown in the past that when he plays well, he stays in the lineup. So it's on Christian now. Can he earn that spot? And more importantly, can he keep it?
Just on Chelsea, has there been any noise or talk in, the media landscape? I know it's not the biggest sport over there, but with Todd Bowley coming in and the American ownership, the American backing, has there been more Chelsea talk in the States?
I think the Chelsea talk in the States comes all from Pulisic. I mean, there's American owners at Liverpool, American owners at Manchester United, American owners, Crystal Palace, part owners of Leeds. So I don't think ownership really affects it that much, but it's more about where the players are. So Leeds and Chelsea are the two teams that Americans are going to be watching the most this season, I think. But yeah, most of the chatter comes from players rather than ownership.
Well, you've also got Matt Turner at Arsenal, who seems to have got himself a number 2 spot with Bernd Leno heading to Fulham. Are you excited by that in terms of the American national team perspective, and also Zach Steffen moving to Middlesbrough? He's going to be probably playing more there next season. What are your thoughts on the goalkeeper situation for the United States national team?
Yeah, I'm more excited about the latter, right? Because we all saw what, not playing at Manchester City did to Zach Steffen. And I guess there's a concern that if Matt Turner isn't going to play for Arsenal, then, it might not be so good for his World Cup hopes. I mean, he'll be in the roster, but it's between him and Zach Steffen really to start. And I think Steffen's made a very smart move to go to a good team, Middlesbrough, in the Championship. They play a very progressive style of football under Chris Wilder. They play that 3-5-2. He's going to be playing out of the back. He had a decent opening day last week. He still has that shakiness, that sort of lack of confidence that is worrying, but it could just be, rust from not playing for so long. We'll see how he does over the course of the season. But if he plays well for Borough, he'll be the number 1 very likely going into Qatar, especially if Matt Turner isn't playing games, On a different note, Ethan Horvath also got a loan to Luton Town. So he's starting in the Championship now too. So at least 2 of our 3 goalkeepers are starters now. And I'd rather they be a starter in the Championship than a backup for, a Champions League club. Like, just because you're at a club but you never play, I'd rather they play, especially goalkeepers. That's not a position where you come on for the last 20 minutes and you can still get some game time if you're not a starter. It's either you're a starter or you're not. Now, if Arsenal decides they're going to use Matt Turner in the Europa League, which I doubt they'll do, great. But it's kind of a wait and see how much playing time he gets.
Chris Richards is another one who's arrived a bit perhaps unheralded for a lot of Premier League supporters and Palace supporters. What will he bring to Palace in the upcoming season?
So Patrick Vieira wants more tactical flexibility at Palace this year. And he tried last year. He wants to play in a back 3. It's interesting how many clubs in the world now play a back 3, particularly at the highest levels. Whether it's a 3-4-3 or a 3-5-2. And obviously he's got, Mark Gahey and Anderson there, who were very good defenders last season. So if he plays a back 4, then Chris Richards is probably the third, the first keeper, the first substitute keeper, defender, first substitute defender. But if he plays a back 3, then very likely Richards will occupy that right center back spot. The other option would be for Patrick Vieira to play 4-2-3-1, and he's done this in preseason, where the left back pushes very high up the field, but the right back stays home, and in possession it kind of becomes a back 3. So I think there are several ways that he can get game time. Richards is a very good header of the ball. He's, aerially, if you look at his stats, he's one of the strongest in Europe, actually, for center backs, and he's only 22. Very good passer of the ball as well. When he played for Hoffenheim, he was not only a good passer of the ball, but he would drive into space with the ball at his feet and set up attacks. I don't know how much he's going to do that in the Premier League. It's a different level, right? The Premier League is harder than the Bundesliga, and the speed of play, something I think he's going to have to get used to. But he's the very talented young defender, and I think we have really high hopes for him. He's not going to start right away. He just got there last week. So, expect the first few games, he'll probably be on the bench, but then eventually, I think he will get game time for Patrick Vieira. And I think, the Palace fans will start to see his quality.
How has this new influx of Americans into the Premier League changed your expectations for the national team, especially with Qatar looming at the end of the year?
I mean, honestly, I don't think it changes that much. Like, they're still the same players. Sometimes we have this mentality that, like, once they go to the Premier League, they all of a sudden become a better player, and that it's not that they can't get used to, the speed of play and the quality of the Premier League. And that it's not that can't help them, but like Brendan Aronson is the same guy that he was at Salzburg, at least as of right now. Will he become a dramatically better player by playing at Leeds? I don't know. We'll have to see. I think it can help for sure. The higher the level you're playing at, the more, the better player you become, in generally speaking, with many exceptions though. I think Crystal Palace, he went from the Bundesliga and Hoffenheim. I think the most important thing is getting game time. If these guys aren't getting game time, then their confidence can suffer. Their just match sharpness can suffer. So the main thing you want is for them to be getting game time, but it looks like all of them will be, except maybe Tim Ream at Fulham. But he's not really on the national team anyway, so he doesn't really factor in. I think he's going to be benched. He was benched the last 2 times Fulham got promoted, and I don't see him having gotten any better. He's 35 now, and so but again, Tim Ream's not on the national team, so I don't think that's an issue.
After this, you're heading off to see Gareth Bale play for LAFC. What's the reception been, the mood, the atmosphere in the city since he's joined the club?
Oh, they love him. They absolutely love him. I mean, I was at the game last weekend versus Seattle, and he didn't start that game, but he came on as a sub in the 15th minute. And as soon as he got up and started warming up, the whole fan base just went crazy, and they announced his substitution. The roar of the fans. They absolutely love having a star like Gareth Bale here. So it's super fun. I mean, it's great to see. How much of an impact he's going to have on LAFC is really the question. I said when he joined LAFC that he wasn't here to play football. Gareth Bale's had a lot of injuries and he loves golf. And I just think he wants to relax and take it easy a little bit. And you can do that in MLS sometimes. So I don't know how much of an impact he's going to have. He did score a goal already, so he's got 1 goal. But I don't think he's the same Gareth Bale that he was, 5 years ago. And I think a lot of people have those memories of Gareth Bale. And I think he's still a good player, but, injuries have taken their toll on him. And I hope he finds some great golf courses here in LA, which we have a lot. So.
All right, Pete, I won't keep you much longer. I know you got to get to the game. So thanks again for your time.
No, thanks so much for having me, Andrew. Appreciate it.
Awesome.